Hi everyone, welcome. In this session, I won't be channeling. A lot of, or some of you have been kind enough to send me questions or seek help on different topics, and I'm very happy to help, and it helps me a lot with guiding the practice forward. And what I'm really looking for with the channeling is also to personally understand what it is, and I can't really do that unless I unfold it in some sort of co-creation. So my intent is always to find a place where these very esoteric matters meet what's more practical in an individual situation, and that's different from each and every one of you. So in this small explanation, I'll try to expound on the serpent energy. One of you have been asking about the reptilians, and I think in a later explanation video, I'll get into why I work with them and how you can understand the reptilians and pretty much what they're about. But in brief about the serpent energy, and there's a lot written about this. When you enter into the mystical spaces, when you enter into these kind of awakening spaces, you will find that your spine becomes energetically charged, and the most let's say easily accessible system to approach these things is through the system of Kundalini yoga, the Indian mystical physiology. Like in this basic tantric model, what is happening is that the feminine force of the Shakti, the pure power of the cosmos, the pure unmanifested energy, so raw material in that sense, sits at the bottom of every human being's spine, and it lies dormant down there. And once you enter into the awakening space, you will probably start to recall also some experiences in your childhood when you experience some tingling sensations or other things. And I don't necessarily mean of a sexual nature. Of course, these are also very natural, but it's more to the kind of some sort of ineffable effervescence that lives down in the neurons in those areas. There's a sort of a fizzy force residing in the perineum, and this is has well known in Indian physiology, but of course this is an area that has been shut off a lot in let us just say the further west you go, or the higher you get into to like very buttoned up civilizations, the more these areas, especially below the belly button, become shut off. And particularly the last 200 years of European history has seen in the development of our societies almost and the way we live, a systemic way to suppress this area. So the wearing of pants, which was actually a military custom, becomes fashionable after the French Revolution and the Napoleonic Wars. And like the wearing of pants is designed intuitively. I'm not saying whoever came up with the pants, but they keep down the natural instincts of the individual, which live down in the second and the first chakra, so the navel area and the bottom of the perineum, which are these like raw instincts of let us say animal nourishment. So these are vital instincts for an individual to be integrated and full and whole, to somehow access these, but these become shut off in most European bodies in particular. I'm using this in the extended sense, but anyone who has lived this sort of lifestyle where you spend a lot of time sitting on chairs, for instance, is another thing that's absolutely horrible for these chakras and the way we use them. Of course, also the way we use toilets, it could also perhaps be better. But let's not get into that one. You can discuss that with an Indian person someday if you go there. But these are some of the aspects, and this of the first chakra in particular, this red, pure red energy that is can also be approached like almost like the force of a volcano. Like that metaphor is obvious, because it's the pure force of life, or that wants to ascend, that wants to manifest itself, that wants to gorge itself on the world. And in that way, it's also, it's the feminine force because it's the creative force, but so it's the Shakti image, which is positive, but it's also the negative image, which is the Kali image, which will eat you up. But what you are attempting in Kundalini yoga and in the awakening experience in general, this is just a way of describing it, is you are attempting to integrate this energy that lives at the spine with the energy that lives in the three upper chakras, that is your throat, your third eye, and then the crown chakra, which you can see I keep covered these days because I find that's a much nicer way to control the influx of energies. So returning to that, you will see that that these energies, which are perceived more as the masculine, that is the pure mental energy or spiritual force or distinction or judgment, like that energy which separates the raw energy of the cosmos. There are many words for this, but the prakriti, that the material mass is separated by consciousness or spirit, sort of penetrating into it, and this creates the world of experience. And physiologically, this is taking place in your heart center. So when you start the awakening experience, you will feel a lot of strange energetic symptoms, but what is ultimately trying to unfold itself through your incarnation is this sort of alchemical mystery of the mixing energies that meet in your heart space. Now, what does this have to do with the serpent energy? That's a really good question, you say. For some instance, for some reason, and no one really knows why, but there are a lot of qualified guesses. This energy at the base of the spine is in every tradition symbolized by a serpent or a snake. And of course, you find it in you can of course find it in the myth of Adam and Eve, but you also find it in, for instance, I want to say Apsu and Enlil, but some of the earlier Sumerian myths, and you can write me. I can send you some links and references. You also find it in the image of Quetzalcoatl in Mesoamerican religion, for instance. So the image of the feathered serpent is the serpent arising and trying to reach its spiritual aspect. We also have it in Norse tradition, where at Yggdrasil, the world tree, at the root of that sits the serpent Nidhogg, who gnaws at its roots, and then at the top sits an eagle, and you find this image of the bird or the eagle or the bird of prey in all traditions also. For instance, also in the Egyptian tradition, the primordial waters also rest on a snake. That there's this image, and there's so much created with the myth of Osiris and Horus and Seth, which is also this strange myth of somehow the bird energy the bird of prey, so the masculine energy or this spiritual energy having to somehow fight out the battle with the serpentine energy that resides at the bottom of the world in the state of pure potential chaos. So, and I don't know how this makes intuitive a lot of sense the more you approach it, but it can seem like very hairy stuff. So how to resolve these energies, how to resolve the serpentine energies with the energies of the bird of prey? Well, the image of the dragon comes to mind, and also the image of the Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent. So this is the fusion of the two within the heart center. This is what you are trying to achieve, is the dragon-like figure. And notice, even in Western tradition, where dragons are usually portrayed as far more evil or trickster-like compared to the Chinese tradition, for instance, they are still regarded as very wise, they are still regarded as very self-sufficient, and they are still regarded as keepers of great secrets, and they often hold the treasure. For instance, if you know the myth of Sigurd and Fafner, which is also one of these central North European myths, of course, is also about the serpent hiding the treasure. And then when Sigurd kills it and eats the heart of the serpent, he understands the speech of animals, and he can suddenly understand all of nature. He has this almost sort of, what we might consider a shamanic or a psychedelic perception of the world. And this is in many ways what you're aiming for. It is this higher dimension that is accessed through the opening of the heart space. And that is essentially what the serpent image is trying to tell us. It is trying to open up to our own power. And notice this is also what happens, takes place in the myth of the fall of man, and original sin, and the Garden of Eden and all that. Is what the snake is actually promising, is that we will become like gods ourselves, and so he promises this type of secret gnosis, which is the promise to be a fulfilled man. But this conflict is and to eat from the tree, and the tree is your nervous system, and then your nervous system is frayed, so you live in that natural state of monkey mind, or in northern tradition it's expressed as the squirrel running about the world tree with rumor. So you see, he lives in a chatter, he lives everywhere in his nervous system. And that is a reason why he can't settle this. He can't settle this energy by any other way, but by allowing forces of, let us say, greater animal value to take over and increase themselves. And why this image is a very good explanation. My own best bet, and this is a sort of a Sufi notion that is rediscovered in I'm speculating here, but rediscovered in modern biology by the term that ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny. What that means is that what you see, the present shape of what you see, what the philosopher Whitehead called reality, encapsulates the entire process of what has gone before it. And since our nervous system split apart from the ancestors, we share common ancestors with the reptilians, there is perhaps some or with the reptiles, I should just say, this is pure evolutionary biology. There is perhaps some commonality in patterns where we share this with this basic pattern with all the vertebrates. But that, of course, does not explain why the bird of prey has to turn up, and what these archetypes really mean. It's a very strange and interesting myth. But what I will say, I know there's a lot of information to digest here, and there are a lot of other places where you can get these information separately and with a lot more context. But generally, what is happening is that if you don't integrate these forces, then one of them takes over. You see, for instance, in the image of the dove or the Holy Spirit in Christianity, this is of course a very beautiful image, but invoking the criticism of Christianity by Nietzsche, this is a very Apollonian principle. So it means it's very ordered. It wants to control the world. It wants harmony. It seeks to judge and separate. And this is in many ways a very beneficial function. It's needed, but it's only half the math. So that's simply why. And in the other hand, you find. And this is where we touch on some of the subjects that I can go into with the song lyrics and stuff you have been asking about. But it is that we find the image of the serpent or the demon-like quality, the Satan-like quality of pure lust and satiation, that these values in themselves becomes fetishized. And of course, like blind appetite will simply lead to your own gluttony and destruction. So these are one of the reasons why these two energies, so the energy of the serpent and the energy of the bird must be integrated as the energy of the dragon in the heart. And this is one of the reasons that I am attempting to work with these reptilian energies, is because I know these constitute or mirror a very, very basic part of human nature that we can't transmute before we accept, acknowledge, and integrate. And everyone who claims to be only working with the light only run the risk of growing the bigger a shadow and causing the more destruction to the world. So we always have to remember that there are at least two aspects to everything. I think that will do it for now. I hope at least one of you who asked the question will benefit from it, and maybe some others benefited from listening. Well, until next guys, live long and prosper.